Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending. Today's webinar is called Spreadsheet Link, starring Big E and Little M, and this is not indicative of the weight of that discipline in this industry. This is just a title. We're going to be delving into some electrical discipline related and mechanical related parameters. But as Oliver mentioned, I'm Liberty Longalong. I'm one of the application engineers here at CTC, focused on the MEP side. So let's go ahead and get started with the description. So in this half hour, we will basically address and show users how to push specific electrical parameters to a family classified underneath the mechanical equipment category. So this is within Revit using the functionality of Spreadsheet Link. We will also be delving into a little bit of family processor. So the problem on a project-to-project basis, this is just addressing that actual task of, getting content that's catered towards your project, regardless of it being, based on geometry or based on electrical connectors or based on anything calculating or analytical. We have all run into this where, we've started a new project. We have potentially the MEPPP starter project that we're starting with. And sometimes we need to download a new piece of content to add to, as well as schedule properly. So this is addressing the issue of, hey, end user has downloaded an RFA file from BIM object or, Daikin or a manufacturer, and it's addressing the parameters within that downloaded family and making it trackable through Spreadsheet Link, essentially, when you're exporting the specific parameters associated or importing associated with a schedule. So the solution, like I was previously mentioning, was Family Processor and Spreadsheet Link to populate those schedules. So you'll see shortly that not only are we pushing additional parameters to a family, but we're actually exporting those same said parameters to a spreadsheet. So, there's probably an electrical engineer on the other side of the building who may have a minimal presence in Revit. One of those solutions involves sending them an Excel file so that they can make edits to the Revit model without actually being in Revit. So this leans towards my learning objectives. The first learning objective includes assessing your electrical load and calculation parameters needed to power a multi-category mechanical equipment family. The second learning objective includes deciding which parameters to push out to Excel via Spreadsheet Link. And the third learning objective includes pushing parameters back into the project environment of the mechanical equipment family. I just want to add a side note. When we were coming up with these learning objectives months ago, I made a typo. I did not mean to add the family editing environment. I meant project environment. So sorry about that, guys. I know we saw these learning objectives on the marketing blasts and website. So again, my apology for the confusion. All right, so this demonstration is primarily going to be in Revit 2019. So far, the latest and greatest build version that I have received a notification for in the Autodesk desktop app is 2019.0.1. Since we are going to be looking at Spreadsheet Link, that exists in the BIM project suite, and we're currently on version 19.0.1. And I know this is a lot of numbers, a lot of variations, but for the BIM Manager Suite, since we are going to delve into Family Processor, we're currently on version 19.0.0. So let me just go ahead and let's get you to some of these dialog boxes here. So in my spreadsheet, or in my actual PowerPoint, we have these two images that basically give you the version as well as the build number. So for the actual Revit API, you're going to want to go to that big question mark about Autodesk Revit. Your version's articulated at the top right corner. And then for any tool, if you need to check for a particular suite, always go into your suite settings underneath that Revit Express Tools tab, and the About button will be your best friend. And lo and behold, we are on the latest version for the BIM project suite. So it looks like we're good to go. I always like to ensure that, we're on the latest and greatest version so that, we minimize corruption, error dialog boxes, corrupted elements, that sort of thing that comes up from using an outdated version. And if we have some time today, we may go into some additional disciplines. We might be able to look at a settings file for controls and disconnects. This is kind of catered more to the contractor side, involving your electrical equipment as well as your mechanical equipment categorized families. And then we have our electrical schedule information for export. So again, this is addressing that issue or problem where someone across the building in your organization does not have a large Revit presence or is not in Revit every day, so they may just need an Excel file to edit. These parameters are going to populate that Excel file. And again, that's if we have the time to get to it. And then there is another live spreadsheet link settings file I would like to create in front of you involving pipe systems. So we'll see how the sequence of events goes with the software. All right, so this is addressing the just after I downloaded an RFA from either BIM object or a manufacturer. I notice here that this might not be the right data set. So notice here that in my type properties, I have 4 parameter categories listed. I have, everything under identity data saying this came from BIM object. This is the manufacturer's site. And here are some electrical parameters that came with. So, okay, I'll load it into my project. This starter project that I am in is actually the Mechanical Electrical Plumbing Productivity Pack. It's fully loaded with tons of parameters, tons of families, and it's actually a good ground to demonstrate in as well. So I've got the family inserted. This is an air handling rooftop slash, it's part of the mechanical equipment category. And we took a look at all of the parameters that do exist. And I'm looking right away. Nothing's existing for that family under my motor list schedule that comes with the productivity pack. So it looks like I basically have a non-schedulable new piece of content in my project, and my deadline's at 3 o'clock, so I've got to figure this out. I could essentially go back into the family editing environment, add everything one by one. It's definitely a doable process. It's just a little time intensive. So let's cut that time short. I'm going to go ahead and open up Family Processor and basically go into the Change Parameters tab. Now, you guys notice that I do have a shared parameter text file loaded. Just be mindful of where you're loading it from, and I'll show you why in the schedules due to duplicate GUIDs, but you'll see here shortly once I add the shared parameters. So I've got the shared parameter file text file mapped. Underneath the Change Parameters tabs, I got 5 additional tabs. The only tab I'm going to care about right now is the Add Shared Parameters tab and the Select Families and Begin tab. So we took a look at this dead schedule and how we were not able to populate it based on, that family getting inserted in. So I'd like to bring to the attention of some of these field parameters or these actual sorting parameters as well. So it looks like we've got three top parameters that we need to make sure that are in charge of filtering our schedule. So it looks like all of these components in this schedule include this parameter, and it's a yes/no parameter. And that yes/no box needs to be checked in order for said family to show up in your schedule. So right away, I'm looking at the schedule. I know I need to add at least this motor coordination required parameter. For sorting, maybe motor description, schedule sort order, identity mark. I would say we could limit it down to these three parameters in terms of sorting. So I'm just going to take a look here. Schedule appear on. It is an instance and it's applied to everything here. So I also know that I have it in my shared parameter text file. So I'm going to make sure that it is added to the family. So I'm just going to go back into family processor here, and I'm going to go ahead and add shared parameters based on that schedule that we just looked at in terms of what we want to see maybe, or maybe these are items that we need the electrical engineer to modify in the Excel file. So I'm going to go ahead and select a few parameters that may or may not be of value to the process. Either way, they will always be of value. I'm just saying to an actual project. You might report different types of data. So I've got number of poles, load class, let's see, power factor. That was another parameter that I saw in the schedule. Let's see if motor voltage exists. I'm going to go ahead and add that. Maybe motor phase. But you guys get the gist. If I were to open up the settings file that saved these shared parameters that needed to be added, because this is such a large starter project, it might take a little bit longer. And I'm just going to add some additional motor parameters as we go down the line here. So maybe this might need some heating element motor as well as phase parameters. So I'm just going to add, these parameters that I'm noticing in the motor list schedule. So more motor coordination required, as well as schedule appear on. These are your important sorting parameters. So in order for me to find these easily, I want to make sure that they're added to a group where I know I can locate them. So for the rest of the voltage and phase parameters, I want to keep it consistent. I want to make sure that everything is where I placed it. I'm going to make sure I add everything to the correct group so that it's distinguishable by everyone in the organization. And we want to make sure everything is kind of added to circuiting here. So everything's consistent. Thanks for bearing with, guys. So I also noticed that there weren't any formulas associated with these said parameters in the schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Select Families and Begin file or tab and click on Current Family File. And I'll go ahead and begin processing. And once I do that, Family Processor will show me a dialog box confirming that I want to add these shared parameters. So I'll go ahead and hit the Continue Processing button. Obviously, this might take a bit since there are tons of parameters. Let's go ahead to the end result here. Oh, that was a lot quicker. So let's see. Let's go back to commit changes to the open family document. Now that's basically letting me know that it's going to add all of the parameters that I added via Family Processor to my type properties. So this is process family. You guys can see that a lot of the phase and voltage parameters were added. And then under identity data, schedule appear on and schedule sort order are added, as well as motor coordination required. And this parameter will be very responsible in ensuring that this new family that you downloaded is going to show up in your schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Load into Project. This is the data set I want to load into. let's take a look and see if we have it added to our motor list schedule. So looks like certain items were added under the circuit information, simply because we did have the motor coordination parameter added. Here it's actually a hidden parameter, but the filter is set up so that if motor coordination required equals yes, meaning if the box is checked, that equipment will show up in your schedule. Now, on to Spreadsheet link. So, I'm going to go to the Revit Express Tools tab, click on Spreadsheet link here. And again, this is also this does take a little bit in terms of loading the parameters that are available per category. So if I were to load my settings from a file, let's see. And mind you, this actual dialog box is considered the Spreadsheet link settings dialog, where you actually pick all of your categories, your schedule categories, and your parameters associated with. And then these items will show up as different tabs in the actual spreadsheet dialog. So this is the Spreadsheet link settings box. This is just the Spreadsheet link settings dialog box. So I can either go into new settings or load settings, but basically these parameters that we just added to our family, we want to be able to send the parameters off to, you know, anyone who can make mods to the Excel file. In this instance, yeah, the electrical or mechanical or structural engineer. So I'm going to go ahead and select mechanical equipment because that family that I just inserted is added under the mechanical equipment family. So it will take a bit. I do want to load the settings though, so that it is a little shorter here. So let's go ahead and add the electrical circuit information for export. So again, because this is a larger project, it definitely will take a little bit. It won't be as quick as we'd like, but let's just take a look here at the data set, and I'll show you guys what kind of a spreadsheet is supposed to be produced after. So it's supposed to look like this. Basically, once the dialog box is done loading, you guys will notice that the same parameters that I added to that said family are exported to an Excel file. And we have phase here, we have frequency, number of poles, load class, all these parameters derived from the mechanical equipment category down here. So because I don't know, what these calculating parameters are associated with, I added a column for the family as well as the type. So let's just take a look and see if we've got our settings file up. I did create a couple of versions of the settings file. This one seemed to work the best, but as you guys can see, these are the same parameters that I added to the family that was downloaded from BIM object. And basically what you can do is you can save this, and you guys saw the tests that I've been performing this morning. But you can save it out. Someone in your organization can access this file and basically make changes to these column parameters. They're essentially making changes to the model without being in Revit. So let's just say we want to open this guy up, and it looks like that family that I inserted in is added at the bottom. Thanks to the family and type column here. So I noticed that all of these boxes are red underneath the compressor motor voltage information. That's where you're going to want to make edits. If you were to make edits to these inactive text boxes for the rows, your changes won't reflect, simply because you're making changes to not the type of that family, but just to an instance. So it's important to modify, your values so that you're editing the red boxes. So let's go ahead. These parameters, your compressor motor voltage, phase, heating element voltage, and phase. Again, those are very specialized, definitely very catered towards a specific project. So, they will populate, but because for this example, we're just going to show some of the changes that might reflect, when we change and modify these values. So looks like I can copy 115 here. I want to make sure that this box is still red. Maybe we want to copy the power factor, and someone has specified that that power factor is going to be different for this specific rooftop unit. So I'll go ahead and hit save as. Sorry for all these file branches, but it's going to be test 1A. Now I'm going to go back into the spreadsheet link dialog, and I'm going to open up that spreadsheet that I just modified, and hopefully we can apply the changes. So I'll go ahead and hit apply, and again, this will be a time-intensive process. As you can see, there is a status bar at the bottom here. This isn't going to be as time-intensive as editing the values in the software and learning it from the ground up, but it definitely isn't quick. So I'll just show you what this motor list looks like. It's a motor list schedule. So basically, I think we're on the wrong data set, so I can't really show you guys, but I'm applying all of the changes based on the edits that were made in that spreadsheet. And then once this guy is done loading, you guys can see how significantly you can change the model just based on what you're doing in Excel. So we're going to go ahead and let this process. I get a dialog box that lists the values in the spreadsheet were successfully applied to the Revit project. Elements updated. Typically it'll show 1, but because this is just a demonstration, I want to show you all the ins and outs of this dialog box, and it's basically saying family instance cannot be retrieved for the element ID. So along the lines here, I may have made a change to an instance property, but let's see what happens when we get out of here. So it looks like that motor voltage reflected, and some of these columns are kind of hidden, but one thing I do want to note, if you engage in this process and you're still feeling a little iffy about how the values populate, always double check to see if you may have mapped a couple of shared parameter text files. Like for this instance, it looks like motor voltage may not be the correct motor voltage parameter. The only way we can check is to see the GUID, but for right now, it looks like we do have the correct one, but if we have another one that exists here, that means we do have duplicate parameters. So it's just one thing to think about and troubleshoot in case you run into this issue. If in doubt, after pushing the changes from Spreadsheet link, you are not seeing anything populate, just check your fields and ensure that you've got one set of parameters, especially on the calculating / analytical side. So it looks like we do have maybe 4 minutes left. I definitely want to show you guys how to create one of these settings files live. So we'll just go into plumbing, and I want to go into the piping example that I had mentioned in the PowerPoint. So let's just go to piping systems here, and let's say you're 60% into a project. You've got all of your piping system classifications assigned to your pipe elements. Everything's connected. We're propagating flow where we need to. Here's a little spreadsheet link settings file that I want to leave you with that will show you kind of how instantaneous the changes get made. So I'm going to go to system classification, system name. So it looks like I've got all of my different abbreviations associated with. So 60% along the way in this job, and I think, you know, someone involved in the project wants to change all of your sanitary vent piping systems, anything associated with, to a different abbreviation. So let me just get out of our little rooftop test here. It looks like I've got everything listed out. You know, let's just say the plumbing engineer is not happy with some of these abbreviations and thinks we need to change everything for sanitary, vent, and sewer to W. So, you know, we'll hit this, we'll save this, we'll modify the values, but I'll definitely show you guys what this will look like. So it looks like under our piping systems, for sanitary vent, when I go into the type properties, the abbreviation is V. So I'm going back into my spreadsheet and I'm ensuring that I'm making changes to a red lined box. So I've gone ahead and proceeded with the changes to the system abbreviations for both sanitary vent and sanitary sewer. So let's go ahead and see if we can try to bring this change in. So I'm going to hit open. This is the piping system test Excel file. All of my changes are reflected in the spreadsheet, and I'll go ahead and hit apply. Do you wish to apply the values in the spreadsheet to the Revit project? Yes, of course. So this is a little quicker, very powerful. It's basically telling me that I've updated 2 elements within this spreadsheet. 534 have not been modified. So I'll hit close. I don't necessarily need to see the settings because I just loaded a spreadsheet. And when I go into the type properties, we see here that that system abbreviation is modified. So, you know, hopefully we got a little more specific, a little more catered towards, you know, how powerful these tools can be. I just want to thank you guys for attending, but some of these benefits from knowing Spreadsheet Link as well as Family Processor, you're essentially addressing the parameter name game. So you're matching parameter names from, you know, Spreadsheet Link to Family Processor. It's all connected to one another. So, you know, creating new shared parameters and, you know, going quote unquote rogue with them. Got to be really, really careful with consistency so that, you know, if you have to make changes to the project or the family editing environment, you at least can play the parameter matching name game. Second benefit includes knowledge of pushing changes to Revit through Excel. So like you saw the spreadsheet, you saw the red line boxes, you know that if you edited something with inactive gray text, you're not necessarily going to push changes successfully. And, you know, if you don't see the changes in your schedule, again, it's always worth a try, worth a shot to double check if you have duplicate parameters with duplicate GUIDs coming from 2 duplicate shared parameter text files. And then the third benefit includes addressing tasks in the future with Spreadsheet Link. So we touched on all disciplines, MEP, and, you know, we basically wanted to show you what kinds of things you could go to in case something's not working. So I really appreciate you guys attending. Feel free to add comments. We do have a new updated survey, and I look forward to your comments. Thanks, guys, and have a wonderful day.